guys, it's me, Sam. So I realized that I filmed my first portion for my May wrap-up, which was the physical books, but I never filmed the audiobook portion of the wrap-up. So here we are. And, yeah. Let's see if I can remember what audiobooks I listened to in May. So, the first book that I completed in the month of May for audiobooks, remember, is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely adored this book. It was a completely new, reimagined world with its own magic system. There was dragon, there was just everything, and basically it followed 4 different storylines in kind of 4 different parts of this world, and as the story went on, these lines twisted and braided and came together, and in the end it just wove this amazing story, and small little details from the very beginning of the book became important at the end, and it was one of those things where you'd be like, oh, that's why that was the way it is, and blah blah blah. I don't want to give too much away because it was so amazing. Highly recommend. It is a hefty book. It's a chunker. I don't know how many pages because obviously I read it. I listened to it on Audible. And I believe it was like 27 hours or something like that. But I was just engrossed the whole time. I guess a little summary of it would be, basically there was an ancient evil that was put to rest and supposedly is tied to the fate of the ruling house of Innis, I believe it is, and it's said that when this line fails, I forget what it is called. Anywho, it's said that when this line fails, that this great evil will come back, and so it's basically following this last hurrah of this house, and there's assassins trying to kill the queen and a member of the Priory of the Orange Tree, which is the last stronghold of magic in the world. They know the true story of what happened, and so they sent one of their own to protect the queen. And on the other side of the world, they worship not the fire-breathing dragons that are feared, but the water dragons. The two sides are not in agreement following these last months before this great evil returns, and they have to fight it. And of course there's love and magic and politics. There's a lot of politics because there's so many different countries that have so many different beliefs, and they're all vying for position, and it's very interesting. Usually I don't like political anything, not even in real life, but I very much enjoyed this book. After that, I listened to both books in the Arc of the Scythe series, so that's Scythe and Thunderhead, both by Neil Shusterman, And I believe I gave these both a 4.5. Very, very much enjoyed these as well. I had a really good month for book listening for books in May. So this book takes place in a future world where death has been conquered. People do not die from natural causes anymore, and they live indefinitely until the Scythes decide that it is time for them to die. Basically, there are Scythes, and they are the bringers of death. They decide who dies, when, and how. And that is the only way that you can be permanently taken out of this world. And it's just accepted that that's the way that it is. But as with everything in this world, it is not without its corruption, and that is the premise of this series. It's following 2 new recruits taken on because they do not want this role, and their mentor believes that this is what will make them great Scythes. But of course, not everything is straightforward, cut and dried, and their apprenticeships take a 90-degree turn, and they both start to see that the Scythedom is a corrupt place and that it needs to be fixed. Then I listened to A Gathering of Shadows by B.E. Schwab, which is the second book in the Shades of Magic series. I gave this just 3 stars. I think that it mostly had to do, now that I'm looking back on it, I think that it honestly mostly had to do with the voice actors. I could not get along with them in my head. The story was very compelling. It follows Kel and Lila again. And at the end of the first book, they went their separate ways, but now they come back together for a tournament that is being played in Red London, and Lila discovers that she might be more than she seems, and this tournament is reserved for the great magicians. The Antari are not supposed to be allowed to compete, but of course, Kel and Rye find a way for him to compete, and Lila finds a way for herself to compete. All the while, there is an undertow of Black London is starting to re-emerge. And I did read the 3rd book already. I listened to it, and out of the 3, the 2nd book was definitely my least favorite. That it kind of has that middle child syndrome, that middle book syndrome, where it's just kind of all fluff for the series. You know, it's getting us from point A, which is the 1st book, to point B, which is the 3rd book. Not to say that it wasn't enjoyable, it was just my least favorite of the series. Then I listened to The Farm by Joanne Ramos. I gave this book a 4. There is a place that the inhabitants dub the farm, where women go to be surrogates, and their every need is taken care of for all 9 months that they're there. They get paid handsomely as long as they follow the rules. And through this book, we follow 2 women who are there at the farm at the same time, pregnant. Neither of them know who they're carrying these children for. And we also follow the director of this facility. And it turns out that for some, this might not be the dream come true that they believe it is. A lot of the women that are there are from the Philippines or have immigrated to America, and it seems as if they may be being taken advantage of in this place. And there are many strict rules and guidelines that they need to follow, and basically they are just vessels to get these children into the world. And for a few of the women there, it's very hard. It's a very hard pill to swallow. And I thought it was definitely an interesting commentary on where our society could go. I mean, we already have surrogates, and it's just one more little step for there to be facilities to house these individuals and to keep a close eye on them. So in that way I found it interesting. Not my typical read it's not my typical genre that I usually go for, but I very much enjoyed it. Then I listened to the first 2 books in the Themis Files, which is a trilogy. It's about a young girl named Rose who lives in a small town in Dakota, North Dakota, South Dakota. And she, one night when she is very young, she discovers this giant pit with a giant metal hand in it with markings that are not of this world. And it belongs to a giant, which they dub Themis. And basically it is from outer space. When she gets older and she's graduated from college, she ends up being put on a task force that is designated to find the rest of Themis. And they end up doing it. And these books follow the progression of what happens as they find Themis, put her together, use her, and then what gets called forth when they figure out how to operate her. And it's written in a very interesting style. I believe I gave these books 4 stars. It was a completely new concept and type of writing for me, and it kept me riveted. I enjoyed it greatly. It was written as a collection of files by this unnamed man who is interviewing the people involved with Themis, documenting everything that is happening, and that is what became the books. I will be reading the 3rd one later on. It's coming to Scribd, I don't know how you say it, but it's coming later this month, and I'm looking forward to finishing that series. And then, my dears, they also had the Princess Diaries on Scribd, and I listened to the first 4 books. I listened to them before, but it was just something fun to listen to, you know, to bring me back to my nostalgic days in high school when I was 14 and worried about boys and how I looked, how my hair was compared to everyone else. Because that's basically what this is Princess Mia finds out that she's a princess of Genovia, and she has to get princess lessons from her horrible grandmother, and this all comes about because her father had testicular cancer and can't have any more kids, and she doesn't want it, and she's a very anxious person, very worried, and she has trouble voicing what she's feeling, so she writes everything down. And it just goes through her love affair with different boys and worrying about not having a boyfriend, and just reading it now as based on when I first read it, I can see that is how I was when I was in high school. Just the exact same way, and I just have to shake my head, and it's just so nostalgic. I can't even. I didn't really rate those because it's a nostalgic thing, so those are all of the books that I listened to in the month of May. I'm already super far into my reading list for June. I've read more, or I've listened to more audiobooks than I have regular books at this point, so that's not surprising, seeing as I spend 8 hours a day listening to my audiobooks. As always, the doggies and I hope you have a good day, and we'll see you next time. Bye!